Welcome back to Bulletproof Mindset, Scotland's #1 health, fitness and entertainment podcast. So in today's episode, we welcome our good friend Jack Ritchie, and we had a fantastic conversation. Jack is the owner of More Life Clinic and is making moves in the sports therapy and physio space. You would have heard us talk about this in the past, that how there sometimes can be a bit of a bad reputation between PTs and physios. Do you need them? Are they important? And we get into this whole debate in today's episode. Not only that, there is a tremendous amount of wisdom and knowledge that is shared throughout this episode. And I know if you're listening, there is a good chance that you have dealt with some stiffness, tightness, maybe even an injury. And we talk about how to rehab it, how to prehab it, stop it from happening in the first place. And overall, it is full of little nuggets of information that you can take away. Now, I'm going to leave links below where you can find Jack on Instagram, but also if you're looking to work with him, he has a place out in Dumbartonshire, and he also has access to a place just outside of Ibrox. You can find Jack on Instagram at JackRitchie_sports-therapy, and the link for that will also be below. Of course, before we get into today's episode, if you are finding us for the first time, or if you haven't already, consider leaving us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Even all three if you want to do. It doesn't only just feed our ego, but it actually helps the show grow. And we have had so much traction so far. So thank you to everyone who has taken the time to do that, but also giving us your time to listen to this podcast. So that's enough chit chat. Let's get into today's episode. I'm not joking, it's like you're holding a dick almost like this.
That's how far away you want to be.
That's how mine was quiet the other day. Because I was looking at where I was and the mic, I was away here and I was like talking.
Right.
So I just need to play
so make sure it's in your face then.
In your face.
Proper in your face.
Genuinely.
Uncomfortably in your face. Right, so welcome Jack. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, boys.
So, start off with a good old Stephen Bartlett. The talk, if you listen to his podcast, he does the same thing every time. We've only had a couple of guests on right enough, but I think to myself, I'm gonna keep asking the same questions, like, take me back to your childhood. But for the audience listening then, so you're a sports therapist.
Yes, sir.
So can I take us through that journey? What made you go into that in the first place? What was the reasoning?
From the context of, like, obviously becoming a sports therapist, like, growing up I was always so aware of everything, so, and health being one of them. Always involved in sports, things like that, always getting fucking injured and shit, so like I had a lot of experience in and amongst like doctors and physios and stuff like that, and it was always kind of fascinating as to how these guys knew like how to fix your problems. So just kind of obviously going through school and stuff, being aware of that and starting to really value and appreciate health like inherently. It wasn't even anything that I chose to really think about, always just on a daily basis, like analysing, being aware of my health, appreciating it. I wanted to be a doctor, obviously, but like then I saw uni. It was like 7-8 years. I was like, fuck that. That's not what I'm trying to do. But I was obviously really interested in how the body worked, biology, all that shit, and then sports. So sports therapy
Kind of made sense.
worked well. I would say obviously coming out of school, I was quite money orientated. Like I knew I wanted to make good money. Looked up the hourly rate of a sports therapist. I was like, looks quite good. But honestly, like, since I got into sports therapy and really found a good passion and satisfaction from actually helping people and understanding the value of this, like, this work in the industry that I'm in now, is what's allowed me to persist with it. Because obviously I feel like I need to be in some way passionate about what I'm doing. And, like,
absolutely.
It's mad. It
needs to be there. We speak about this all the time, like, as much as, like, we actually just done that on one of the how to become a successful PT is, like, a lot of people go into it and go, 35 quid an hour, 40 quid an hour. That sounds great. We don't realise that money isn't the be all and end all. It's what drives most people's kind of passion to work a job, a career. But when you find your passion and do what you love, like, money is almost like a byproduct of being good at it at the end of the day, isn't it?
You wake up in a different mindset as well. You're like, I need to work 12 hours a day, that's alright.
It's not
you wake up for somebody else, you're like, fuck off, man.
Exactly, man.
So have you had any other jobs? Is it because since I met you, I met you like a year ago. We met at a property event.
Yeah.
And you were a sports therapist then, so was it always just through uni and then?
Literally, bro. And I didn't even go uni, man, because fuck uni, bro. That's a trap. So I just done a 2-year college course, and within that, I was going to go to uni, I was going to do all that shit, and I spoke to the lecturers, and I obviously told them that I want to run my own business and all that kind of stuff. And they said the hands-on experience that you'll gain not going to uni. Like, I have boys that have came out of a 4-year uni course and have not even touched a client yet.
Very common.
It's fucking crazy. And they're obviously NHS-based, working with old people. And I work with a lot of old people, but I'm hands-on and I'm really fixing, helping, like, treat them as well, not just kind of analysis, exercise-based work. Although that is a big part of it and probably half of the problem half of the kind of solution to fix your problem. Like, there needs to be a level of manipulation within the kind of the process, I feel, if you're dealing with an injury that's lasted any longer than 3 to 6 months. Do you know what I mean? So
so I'm fascinated with the science and the anatomy of the body. Like, just in my own journey, I couldn't squat, right? I couldn't hold a bar on my back. I was the typical bench press guy, right?
Yeah.
So bench every Monday, every Wednesday, every Friday, and created this sort of imbalance in my posture. You'll see this a lot in the work that you do.
100.
Most people are working behind a desk. This forward upper cross syndrome, I think it's referred to as, or this forward shoulder. So I started to learn about this word mobility. And in my mind, mobility was your granny with a walking stick and mobility scooters. That's where my head went to. It was not a sexy topic. Still isn't as sexy a topic, but it's definitely making more waves than what we've seen in the personal training world. But what was like was there like anything fundamental that you saw with your own journey? Like, do you say, so you had a few injuries and...
So actually, like, being able to look back and actually see, like, the problems that I dealt with, it all came from instability. So, like, joint instability, like, all the I was pro youth football most of my life, all that kind of stuff, and none of what we worked on was any sort of conditioning for the work that we were doing. So, like, that's what I work with a lot of my clients around building joint stability, because obviously your body has a kind of inherent kind of want to choose the path of least resistance. So, for example, you go into a bench press, you're going to use the main movers. You're going to use your chest, triceps, shoulders.
Deep muscles that you don't activate.
Exactly. So there's muscles that, like, what I call it is, like, obviously in the terms used to describe it, is primary and secondary muscles. The primary muscles are the main movers. The secondary muscles are usually the muscles that stabilize that movement. So, for example, in a bench press, I actually have specific warm-ups for a bench press that has nothing to do with your chest. There's muscles around your shoulder blade. It's mental. So, like, your scapulothoracic joint, which is like that shoulder blade and rib cage joint that people don't even know is a joint, because it's not like people think ball and socket joint, your shoulder, but it's a gliding joint that you can gain a lot of control of and help stabilize movements like a bench press. So, obviously, growing up, the instability, my ankles were always fucked, my knees were always sore. So understanding that there's little secondary muscles that help stabilize the main movements, like a squat, even like running, for example. So looking back, that's probably one of the biggest things, like instability, and people that it's obviously lack of knowledge, and obviously you go through school, they don't teach you anything like this. And I feel like it's
typical
crazy.
warm-ups in school, was it like run back and forth,
do you know what I mean?
a couple of star jumps, and then we're good to play basketball, football, whatever it is that's going through your sports. It's mental.
And obviously, like, with that, I wouldn't say it's like, I would say it's necessary, obviously, to warm up the secondary muscles, but it's not like you're going to definitely get injured from not doing these things. But it's all about optimizing recovery in my eyes, obviously. Like, I don't know why, if you have the opportunity to optimize something, why wouldn't you do that? So, like, obviously stabilizing movements through warming up those little stabilizer muscles efficiently before working out is optimal for recovery. And if you're trying to push the capacity of your performance, you are trying to push the capacity of your recovery as well. Like, you see people in the gym 5-6 days a week, sometimes 7, and I ask them, they come in for treatment, all that kind of stuff. I'm like, so what do you do for recovery? Sleep, mate. Do you know what I mean? Like, all they do
protein powder.
Yeah, protein powder. Like, there's no mobility, nothing like that. And if you think about the A to B movements in a gym, you think about the movements that you're carrying out on a daily basis, it's not just A to B. You need to incorporate full body compound movements. So a lot of the time I actually just get my clients, like, on a daily basis, just getting into a deep squat position, get into those primal positions that we used to shit and piss in. Do you know what I mean? Like the
fucking preach it, man.
Do you know what I mean?
Preach it.
We're in this kind of like right angled, like, do you know what I mean, this position, and we wonder why we're fucked. It's crazy. So we think about all the little muscles that don't get exposed to that fully lengthened state, the fully shortened state, And if we start to do that on a daily basis, the aches and pains they disappear.
Yeah.
Aye.
Absolutely love where you're going with this. This is one of the main passions behind us doing what we do. We come from a coaching, a personal training perspective, but a lot of our training is around these movements, because the fundamental basic human movements of pressing out in front of you, pulling towards you, pressing above your head, squatting down, bending over, we're losing that as a society the older and older we get. And I think you can come at it from two angles, but like you said there, like, you don't realise that there's so much that can go into it.
Crazy.
So how long you physioed for?
Hands-on, obviously after college and stuff, 5 to 6 years I've been hands-on working with clients.
Awesome.
Good half a decade,
Yeah.
man.
Good.
And it's crazy to see that, obviously with Initiative, I've really developed a lot of approaches in like my industry that I don't see a lot of therapists using. Even whether that's manipulation techniques on the area when we're treating, or just even the kind of all-round approach to fixing a client. Like, that is one of my pet peeves, bro. One of my pet peeves is therapists that know there's two sides to this, to the fixing the problem. It's not just treatment, it's not just exercises, it's both.
Yeah.
You need to, so I have a 2-step process to fix my clients. Step 1 is manipulation through treatment. That's where we get in, we manipulate, we restore the state of the muscle, so that when we move on to step 2, which is re-education through exercise, it's all about restoring the function of that muscle. And within that, obviously, at the end of this, my client comes out with so much more knowledge, so much more awareness and appreciation for the little muscles that they didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I told you a story about my brother going to a physio.
Yeah,
It really infuriated me. And I think I called you out, maybe, not called you out in a bad way, it was about episode, when we came here, might have even been like episode 45 or 46, because I saw you starting to launch that any one of my clients that comes to see me, as much as we're going through deep tissue massage or whatever it is that you're doing to help them restore their muscle, you were giving them a program of exercises to do on their own. And I think that was the first time, well, not the first time, but very few physios I see actually doing that, like true care and compassion and empathy, going, look, I don't want you just paying 35 quid, 40 quid, 50 quid every time you need to come see me. I want to fix your shit. And here's how we're going to fix your shit. It's not the one session, it's all the stuff you do out with the gym. And we speak about this when it comes to training. It's not one workout, it's going to get
full
you
service.
It's everything. It's everything
crazy.
you do in your daily life, and understanding that is massive. So, what's your bugbears in physiotherapy then that you see from other therapists?
It's purely people, like, so many therapists, they know, as I said, they know they need to implement exercises to actually fix the problem, the cause of the problem, which is instability or lack of neuromuscular control. But they exploit the lack of knowledge that the client has, in that you're going to feel better after a treatment.
Yeah.
But like, if you don't re-educate or rebuild the area that keeps getting tight or keeps causing you pain or tension, then you're just going to keep going back on a monthly basis. And see that reoccurring treatment, that's what these therapists build their fucking living off of.
Yeah.
And I feel like the opposing view of that is creating a sense of loyalty with my clients and actually fixing their problem as quickly as possible, and then allowing them to understand and appreciate the value of maintenance. Because that's another thing as well. So thinking about genuine maintenance, people are too busy in their daily life to really commit every single day to full mobility. Some people do get it perfectly. Like, I stretch every day because I practice what I preach. But a lot of people have kids, they've got busy lives, high responsibility jobs, all that kind of stuff. And if you neglect even a few days a week, not do mobility, or even if you don't do mobility, there needs to be some sort of kind of contrast when it comes to doing all this work and then the recovery and the rest to kind of counteract that build up in tension.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
what I do is I fix clients, like, within 3 sessions, doesn't matter if you've had a 10, 20 year long injury, I can usually within 3 sessions come to a conclusion of where the problem has been, get you in such a better state that you're not feeling any pain, you're improving levels of tension, and if you're consistent with the exercises, I just get my clients to reoccur monthly. Because it is a monthly maintenance thing, and the reason I push that is because, as I said, people don't prioritise recovery near enough. And if you're looking at, like, people think, oh yeah, like, until this actual injury or this pain starts to cause... Yeah. Easy, bro. That's fine.
If you hold it,
Yeah, I'll hold
you
it.
just grab it. It's like a DJ maker.
Legit.
But this bit will adjust in that.
That's fine.
that
Well,
sort of thing.
like, even when you think about, like, I lost my train of thought, but even when you think about the monthly maintenance side of things, people just don't value doing things before they're injured. Like
Yeah.
people just
Oh,
deal with it
absolutely.
when they're injured. Do you know what I mean? They
So-
wait until they're actually causing pain or it's affecting their daily life before they take action.
Aye.
Rehab.
Mhm.
Oh, you want to think about prehab.
Rehab,
You want
aye.
to think about doing shit before it gets to that point. And that's about taking active accountability and prioritising your health. That's a big thing. Fucking, you probably notice as well. No one prioritises their health ever.
No,
Yeah,
it's
we were saying that
scary, mate.
sometimes.
It's so scary.
Like it is never too late, but it definitely can make your journey a whole lot
Longer,
harder.
yeah.
Aye.
More expensive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. So I like the monthly MOT. I heard you talk about this
Yep.
before. We'll get a wee bit controversial here in a wee sec, but
Come on.
I just heard
I love it.
heard you say that, but hearing your point as to why,
Yeah.
and just to kind of recap on that, so you're saying monthly maintenance is there or monthly MOT is there for clients, not because it's necessarily needed, but it's because as a general population, as a whole, we don't do the shit that we know we need to do on a daily basis as to
100.
why we kind of
We neglect our recovery, and that comes from, obviously there's a weird, like, you guys will see it for your clients, we all neglect our own self-care. Like, we'll be the first person to help
Other people.
help the next person out, but like when it comes to us, we'll leave it to the last minute until we really need to deal with it. So like the monthly maintenance side of things is just all about, one, having the accountability to go and actually prioritize your health, and two, just that external help towards clearing tension and preventing injury.
Yeah.
Because as I said, unless you're on it with your daily mobility and you're doing all this good recovery, which a lot of people do, but for the people that have busy lives, high responsibility lives, and even myself, I stretch every day. But when I'm pushing the capacity of my performance,
When are you going to get on?
when am I going to get the recovery in? So I need to go in and actually, it's basically almost like supercharged recovery. Like that hour of treatment can literally last you a month if you go to a good therapist. So like all these hours a day or half an hour a day, etc., for every day for a month. You could come to me once a month for a 90-minute treatment, and I'll be able to run through your whole body and clear more or less all the tension. So it is a time saver at the end of the day as well. Like if you want, because time is money, that's the biggest thing as well. If you want to come to me once a month, you will basically allow yourself to prevent any injury, clear all the build up, and maintain that kind of level of tension and kind of pain-free movement. That's it.
What's your opinion on chiropractors?
Yeah, man.
See it like you mean it.
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
get
so obviously, like, I understand that chiropractors, when it comes to like posture alignment, see when people actually have like fucking bad scoliosis, if it's irreversible, that's different. But if you can literally go in and you're maybe hunched over and you can be adjusted in a way that helps realign your posture, your spinal posture, that's cool. But the people that are going there on a weekly or on a monthly, like, you need to understand why your neck needs cracked. It's not because the little fucking ball, kind of like spaces of air needs released. It's because the muscles around that spine are so fucking tight.
Yeah.
So, like, creating that pressure relief through chiropractic adjustment doesn't solve the issue. Like, the deep tissue massage, that's the missing thing. So, obviously, I know a few therapists that do a lot of deep tissue and accompany that with chiropractor work, adjusting your neck. That's cool because it's a relieving pressure on top of really getting to the root of the problem, which is the tension around that spine. But these guys that tell you, they come in, you go for your first consultation, and before they've even touched you, you're going to need 20 sessions. Do you know what I mean? You're going to need
So
20 fucking weekly sessions. It's mental.
This wasn't a chiropractor, but this was the physio that saw my brother. It's like, yeah, probably going to need to come at me about 15 times. He's like, but what is it? Why is it he's got this deep pain that sits within his lower back? And
Yeah.
I think he had done like 3 minutes of testing with him. And I'm like, to draw a conclusion with that, I get that as physios, you'll know a lot of what's going on with how the joint's moving, how the muscles are contracting, etc. But to do just a couple of movements, go, right, it's definitely that.
Yeah.
To me, that's quite
And how many
brave.
sessions did they commit?
I think he wanted them to commit to like 12, and he done the whole sales pitch of, see, if you do 12, I'll do it for the price of 9, and blah blah blah.
Do you know what I mean? That's
I just
fucking
like, that's when
mental.
you lose my trust straight away when I hear
100%.
that. And I don't know if my brother it was the same, but me being in the industry and knowing what he's doing from a sales perspective,
100%.
I was like, come on. But I carried it. So the other day we were having a chat, and we hear this all the time, and it's like, oh, my shoulder's sore, my neck's sore, my arm's sore, I'm going to go to physio for it. And in a way, we kind of bash that sometimes, because I think people think that, I think you've touched on it, and I can see where you come from, and I completely understand where you come from. People will do that because they're like, right, I need to get fixed, I need to get adjusted, I need to get this soreness sorted, and then I can go back to my training.
Yeah.
What do you think that there's a misconception around that, or do you think that's pretty spot on for an individual to do?
So it depends how deep rooted the injury or the problem is, but most people use that as an excuse, innit? So it's like it kind of does confuse the topic of it. But if you think about, like, let's throw an injury out there, like someone's strained their lower back, you don't really want to push through deadlifts in that. Like, you generally can go and restore the state of the muscle through manipulation, through effective treatment, which will then, like, obviously allow you to get back into exercise, say, pain-free. But at the end of the day, like, a lot of these people that are saying this are using it as an excuse. Do you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, also, when people think about going and, like, say, fixing their shit through physio, that will only happen if there's a level of re-education after the treatment.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Do you think that there needs to be so how important is lifting weights and resistance training in comparison, in conjunction with physio?
Well, crazy amounts, because, like, when you think, I've actually got a lot of clients that are runners, right? And I've got people that gym and run, I've got people that just run, and see the correlation between injuries and niggles and joint issues in comparison to the people that gym versus not gymming. The people that lift weights and run have no problems at all. See the strength and the integrity even around the joint, around the muscles around that joint.
More resilience, isn't it?
It's crazy. It conditions your body for so much more than if you were just to do, say, a given sport like running or football. There needs to be a level of conditioning, and you get that from the gym. That is crazy, man. It's like the longevity within movement comes purely from resistance training.
What do you think about a physio that doesn't go to the gym or doesn't lift weights?
That's
my thing. Like,
it's hypocritical, innit?
It's so hypocritical.
So bad. You can't
imagine. I was just thinking when you said earlier, like, you stretch every day. Imagine you walked in, and you're like, my neck's killing me.
That's what it's like.
You'd be lying on the table going, well, I don't want you to fucking fix my
That's what
shit.
I'm saying. I'm pure walking around, hobbling around. It's so contradictory, because you want to think about the values that a business holds. Like obviously, More Life Clinic. It's called More Life Clinic because the values that I feel like that name holds is giving people more life in the sense of, like,
it's adding years
it's generally
of independence
without getting too deep and emotional, right? Like, some of the people that I've treated and helped genuinely change the quality of their lives and probably the trajectory of their lives when it comes to, like, later life. Honest to fuck, it's crazy. Like, the amount of people that come in with me, like, I had an 88-year-old client, right? 88-year-old client. He came in, using walking sticks and stuff. Within 5 sessions, I had him bodyweight squatting, walking up and down the stairs, no crutches or anything. Completely changed the trajectory of his later life. I know he's 88, right? Yeah. Maybe only a few more years left in the tank, but, like, for the years that he had,
they're much better quality.
Much better quality.
But even think about that. Like, I think I would imagine at that age, when you realise your quality of life is so different to what it was 10 years prior to that.
Yep.
If you say in 5 sessions we're going to get you back to that state of how you felt in your 60s, I think that you can't put a price on that for at that age.
That's it.
As much as a lot of that could potentially been prevented if there was strength training or resistance training in the lead up to your 80s. That's where my message, or both our messages, are actually coming on. Like, don't leave it too late to lift weights, because it will serve you longer.
That's where the general population get everything so wrong. They're like, oh, I'm going to lift 80 even if I smoke, even if I don't go to the gym. I'm like, you will lift 80, but when you're 50, 60, 70, your life will be pretty poor quality.
Slowly but surely just deteriorating, man.
Aye, absolutely.
You're just existing at that point. You're not necessarily living.
So, what is a couple of stretches that you recommend to do every single day? Without giving the full plan away.
What do you think?
What is a couple of amazing stretches that every day you think should be doing every day?
We want to think about the positions that humans in general are naturally in. As us three are sitting in this fucking, like, right angled position.
Aye.
We want to think about the muscles that will just naturally stiffen up. So hip flexors, hamstrings. Even when we think about our glutes, right? We're in a slightly lengthened state where that starts to actually lengthen and basically deactivate the glute as well.
Right.
So we want to think about activation as well. So see, when you say stretches, when I give my clients my routines, it's not just mobility, it's like activation as well.
Movement, resistance bands.
Yeah, it's active mobility. So, like, a few stretches off the top of my head that everyone should be doing on a daily basis is, first of all, this isn't mobility, but it's stability, which is even more important in some cases.
Yep.
The McGill Big Three. The 3 best deep core stability exercises you can do, because it helps activate muscles that stabilize your spine from the front, side, and back. So you think about bending over and standing up. Simple fucking daily activity that everyone does. The lower back's going to get that because the path of least resistance, the muscle that you inherently know to use the most, is what's going to fire up, so your lower back. What we can do to support that is activation through glutes. So just a simple banded glute bridge on a daily basis. Every morning I get down, pelvic tilt, fucking squeeze the arse, nice contraction, 10, 20 second hold, couple sets of that in the morning. It really does improve the neuromuscular control, that mind-muscle connection to stabilize. Same with the McGill Big 3. 3 simple exercises, 3 simple positions. It literally takes you 5 to 10 minutes to do a few simple things.
How crazy is it? Because we see it for the people that we train, but I imagine you'll see it as well, like how much people don't have any control over their pelvic tilt to be able to rotate that and to be able to brace and stabilise their core.
Yep.
To me, it's crazy when you're saying something like, right, tense your core. Oh, I don't know how to.
We
have to kind of work on that.
But then when you say push for a shit, they know what to do. Do you know what I mean? So like, it's
I say I'm going to punch you in the stomach. That's a good one. Push for a shit. I like that.
Well, everyone starts their day with a shit, innit, man? So they know what I'm talking about. But like, agile, like going back to the stretches, like see when we think about the muscles that just don't get access to end range, like your glutes and stuff like that. So pigeon pose, simple exercises like that are what's gonna decrease the stiffness build up around your hips.
Yep.
And naturally, obviously, like when we think about people that live on a daily basis, it really is just kind of improving all levels of mobility.
Yeah.
But in terms of the ones that build up on a daily, I predominantly see it hips, obviously upper back. A lot of people get rounded shoulders. It's weird actually. So a lot of people think rounded shoulders come from a tight chest, but and it does. Lats, there we go. So the attachment point.
More stuff,
there you go.
You went to a physio and they told you that.
He can tell.
No, I'm honestly, I'm so fascinated with physio, and I've messaged you a couple of times.
Yeah.
I'm at the stage now in my life where I've not missed the boat. Maybe I will go one day, but to learn and to educate around it, go to actual physical learning to be a physio, that's probably out with where I'm at in life now with business and that. I'd rather have somebody work in the place and learn from them.
For sure.
Because it's experience and wisdom, as you said, more hands-on
100%.
stuff and seeing stuff live. So, sorry, you were saying shoulder. So a lot of people think it's your chest then.
Yeah, and obviously, like, that is something that you want to target. But when we think of the lats and the attachment point of the lats and what it does, it internally rotates and extends the arm.
Right.
So when we think about that getting tight, it's going to start to internally rotate and pull back the way. So it causes that rounded shoulder. So a stretch that you would look to do on a daily basis is just get those arms overhead. As people think about every client that comes into me, sore shoulder this, it's a very common denominator is not being able to overhead press or do any sort of overhead work. And it's because there's no awareness in that movement, in that position.
I say to my clients, and it's always like a big eye-opening experience when they have the ability to overhead press, but I'm like, think of your daily life. The only two things that you will reach above your head is putting a glass in the up cupboard, or putting your bag in the overhead luggage.
And even then, that's still in front of you.
I know, and
people go on holiday once a year.
Yeah,
you're not getting any of that.
The same way, like pulling yourself, like pulling your triceps down and doing a lat pull down, for example. I think like getting in and out of the pool, like that's really the only exposure you get to that.
Fucking mad.
And I think that's when you start realising the power of lifting weights and having some sort of resilience in around these movements. Like if you can't create that in your daily life, you're sitting at a desk for 8 hours. So the gym has to be mandatory, not from a point of looking aesthetically good, but for fundamental movements, which in return will make you look like a badass as well, because you're not walking about dead stiff.
If you eat properly, obviously.
Well, yeah.
There's a big nutrition part as well.
There's a lot that goes into it, but
so one exercise quickly, just for everyone that goes to the gym or even doesn't go to the gym, that could get access to hang from a bar, to get that lengthened state through lats to help open up the chest a little bit, because a lot of the overhead mobility restriction does come from lats. We could talk all day about the other muscles that do. See if you even just get into a pull-up. Do 5 pull-ups, right? 5 pull-ups. A lot of people can do 5. Maybe some can't. If you can't do pull-ups, go into an assisted lat pull-down machine. And then what you want to think about is just slow eccentrics. 5-6 second eccentrics. Really lengthening that lat under load, which is going to allow you to then actively take that arm overhead without any restriction from the lats. And because of how big that muscle is, it is a very big factor in restriction and overhead mobility. It's crazy, man.
So much of what I go in, it's funny you say you should be able to do at least 5 pull-ups. I'm thinking majority of my clients
It's
a lap pull-down machine.
Assisted pull-ups, even the assisted pull-ups, like putting the machine in that. But so much that I want to get into when it comes to treatment and all this. So first one I wanted to talk about was foam rolling. This gets bashed, but then there's almost like two aggressive sides. It's like one completely pointless, or the one, oh, you must do some sort of fucking tissue relief before you get into your workouts. Give us a wee bit of the value behind it, or if you see value, and where you would apply it in your programs.
For foam rolling as well, you want to make sure that you're not trying to do any level of deep tissue massage. Like, it's all about myofascial release, which people don't.
What's the difference? Like, how heavy you lean on it?
Yeah, exactly. Well, obviously, it's how heavy it feels. So, like, obviously, most people have been for a massage, but if you haven't, you want to feel little to no restriction when you're rolling up and down.
Right.
And what it's all about is, like, you've got this big net of fascia, fatty tissue, from the tip of your toes all the way to the top of your head. It's like a big jumpsuit of fatty tissue. And when you do foam rolling, say on the hamstrings, wherever you're doing it, you can create a sense of release in that fatty tissue and just slightly separate the layer of tissue between the fat and the muscle. And what that does is it allows for a little bit more restriction-free movement when it comes to benching, and it allows you to feel just a little bit freer. So I would only ever include that at the start of a workout, just to maybe free up the kind of fascia, create a myofascial release on the top of the area that you're working on.
So it gives you a little bit extra flexibility.
Yeah, and then on top of that, any level of pressure is going to create a good amount of blood flow. So that blood flow, obviously bringing oxygen, nutrients. When there's more blood flow, there's more elasticity in the tissue as well, so you can allow yourself to, feel a little bit freer. But I would never look to do any level of deep tissue, and what I mean by that is like how heavy you lean on it. But if you just think about feeling it going into your muscle, you feel like, when you press in your muscle, you feel that, versus like fucking scratching yourself. You're not going to feel a level of like kind of pressure more than just skin on top. So I would implement that if you are going to. I don't really, to be honest, but I would implement foam rolling just at the start of a workout, just to create that myofascial release. It helps promote blood flow and just mobilize the tissues that you're working on a little bit more. And especially if people are sitting down all day, it's a good little warm up to actually promote blood flow into that area, create a little bit of elasticity so that you're not as stiff as you were before you foam rolled. Yeah. So it just does help if you're going straight from work, or even if you're someone that doesn't stretch a lot.
I was going to say, the deep tissue one, would you apply that at all if you're not going to the gym or not doing anything? Just come.
Yeah, because
go to Jack, right?
Just go
come to me, bro. More Life Clinic, Caldy. Fucking.
No, shout yourself if you want. Go. We'll show you an intro. We'll show you an intro.
More Life Clinic, More Life treatments. But I feel like the deep tissue side of things, like people, I feel like there's a level of awareness you need to have without injuring yourself.
If the guns, my hamstrings tight, and you
That's
see them.
What I'm saying.
You see the bodybuilders, and they're like, "I'll buy this, £22. Yeah. This beats any physio."
And to be fair, the massage guns I would actually opt for over the foam roller because it's more controlled. People that try, especially if you're maybe a little bit more overweight, you're trying to balance yourself on this fucking foam roller.
I've used that.
So you're actually putting yourself in it sometimes.
I would do these like mobility days, which was a lot of what you were saying, a wee bit of static stretching with a lot of dynamic movements. I've got a mobility stick out there, kind of getting into these weird and wonderful positions. But at the end of it, in the program that I was following, there was foam rolling.
Yeah.
And I'd lie on my back and I'd lift my hands up above my head and roll it up and down my back. Yeah. And I would bruise from it. And I'm like, it can't be that good if I'm fucking bruising, man. Yeah. Surely not. But then you're very limited in what you can do because it's my body weight that's on it. But I never felt, I was like, oof. That's when I realised how tight my back was and 100%. Started leading me down the rabbit hole of doing more movements before just going straight into fucking 4 sets of deadlifts and all that.
That's
sort
what
of stuff.
saying. And then see the other thing as well with like the bruising side of it. That leads me on to thinking about the therapists that don't really kind of prepare the muscle for manipulation. Because as I said, there's layers of fat, layers of skin above the muscle. A lot of the therapists you go to, they will just cause you a lot of pain unnecessarily. That's the same kind of thing with foam rolling.
It's almost like we crave it though, isn't it? It's like the client almost looks for it.
It's almost for DOMs, you know what I mean? It's like, I'll go to the physio and be sore.
That's what it's probably. I would imagine this is similar to we hate when clients, when PTs make their clients do burpees. Yeah. And it's probably because they want them to sweat. Right. Because that's what the client wants, not necessarily what's good for them, what's valuable. So it sounds very similar 100%. In the sense of that. So prepping the body.
Prepping the body, it's just all about like understanding what you're trying to get out of it. So when I look at a client and there's, say, tension in the lower back, I understand that the tension I'm trying to release isn't in the fat, it's in the muscle. So, like, I use scraping techniques and different tools and stuff to really prepare, to break up the tissue before we get into that deeper work. So it leads on to, like, the foam roller. You're not preparing, you're just going straight in deep. That's why deep tissue with a foam roller is not optimal, and it's actually probably...
Suboptimal.
Yeah, suboptimal, probably injures you, mate. You're
Yeah.
fucking bruised from
I
it.
was like, it did actually. I was like, look at my back.
That's not
crazy.
that's not good.
So this is my client the other week there. She came to me. She was like, she hurt herself in jiu-jitsu, right? And she was like, I'm going to go for a sports massage, fix myself.
Yeah.
I'm like, so I was like, why? Because I wasn't too sure about it, but I'm like, give it a few days, see how you feel. And she was like, feeling better, but I'm still going to go for a sports massage.
What was she hurt?
Right, so she hurt her trap there.
Trap.
Aye, so up here, kind of.
Upper trap.
When she woke up, she couldn't really move her neck.
Yeah.
Right, so it was really tight. And I was like, I don't know what to do about it. I've no idea.
Yeah, for sure.
So I was like, she's like, I'm going for a sports massage. And I was like, I don't really know if that's the right idea either.
Yeah.
So what would you say to that?
So, bro,
Be honest. 100%.
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, you think about, obviously, jiu-jitsu, it's a pretty, like, grip, strength, dominant sport. So if you're pulling and pushing, your traps are, especially, see if it was, like, kind of mid-lower trap, it's one of the most underactivated muscles in your back, especially when you're...
slugs, man.
Bro, yeah, and when you're slouched all the time like this, like, they start to just lengthen and deactivate.
Yeah.
So when you go into, like, a sport like that, and you're really activating, shortening them, it's going to strain because it's inherently fucking weak.
Yep.
But to answer your question of, like, should she have went to a sports therapist to fix it, the answer is probably, if you go to a good one, yes, because there's a level of strain that's probably created damage in those fibres. And without manipulating the damaged fibres or the little cluster of damaged fibres that she's created through the strain, then it probably won't go back to that original state. So, like, did you go like a day after?
So, no, it was maybe about 4 or 5 days after, but they said it was more to do with her mid-back on the other side.
Right, so... Oh, the physio did?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Probably.
No, James.
No, me, I fucking no idea.
Yeah. So I was going to say, like, how did you...
No, me, I fucking no idea.
But yeah, no. So, yeah, obviously the root of the problem, regardless of how that, or the pain she was feeling in her trap, is a different story. But yeah, I would say if you got a strain and you feel like it's restricted movement, you definitely could see a benefit from going to a physio or a therapist that's going to help manipulate and restore the state. But ideally... unless it's something that persists with the pain, it's probably something that's just going to heal. Yeah. And you want to maybe just do a bit of, like, lightly lengthened stretching, like, as it heals. Do you know what I mean? So I wouldn't say it's a necessity, but I would say optimal to prevent further kind of injury. Do you know what I mean? 100%. Because you can't outstretch an injury sometimes. And that's one thing I learned from a guy, can't remember his name, but he literally...
You can't or you can? Sorry.
Can't. So, like, people, that's where the thing with physios, they'll just give you exercise-based work. But sometimes you genuinely need a level of manipulation to restore the state of that muscle.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to go into, because a lot of people, the common things that people will say, I've tweaked this, I've pulled this, I've tore this, or I've got some sort of nerve damage. Can you...
Trap nerve.
I trap nerve, that's a fucking another common one.
You hear this fucking shit all the time. Like, how do you know this?
I know. How do you know you've got a trap nerve?
They are 4 of the common ones. Can you go into, like, what is the difference between each one of them? So let's talk about trapped nerves for a second.
Yeah.
Why does that occur? Like, how does that even come about? Or is it just
bullshit? When people say trapped nerve, it doesn't make any sense to what they're referring to. They see a muscle strain, say, on their neck, and they look to the right, and they can't because it's sore. And they think that's a trapped nerve. No, that's a strain in your muscle. So, like, a trapped nerve, in my eyes, it's called nerve fixation. So that's when there's enough pressure on the line of the nerve through the tissue above the nerve that starts to cause, like, nervy pains, whether that's down into your hand. It's never usually localized. Like, see if you've got pain coming from your upper trap.
It radiates down.
Yeah, you're going to feel it coming into your hand, your maybe pinky side if it's ulnar nerve, thumb side if it's radial nerve. But the trapped nerve concept that everyone seems to think they know is fucking stupid.
So how does it occur? Like, why?
So nerve fixation can just come from pressure on the nerve through tension in the tissue. So that can come from sitting, like, see if you're sitting like this all day, like that all day, it can start to put pressure on the line of the nerve, but as I said, you won't probably feel it localized in the area that's causing that. You'll feel it radiate all the way down. So unless there's actually radiating pain all the way down into the ends of the nerve, it's probably not a trapped nerve. It's most definitely not a trapped nerve. It's a muscle strain. But nerve fixation can literally just come from lack of mobility, so lack of blood flow. See the people that sit in that same position all day and they don't gym. Do you know what I mean? We have office job people that come in, you have clients that are office job based, and they come in and they try to kind of combat that stiffness build up for gymming. But the people that suffer from trapped nerves or nerve fixation is usually from overuse, whether that's like on an office job or you got a very manual job, repetitive movements. And that actually leads me on to make a point about not staying in the same position for too long. because that is the biggest problem as well.
How often would you break it?
How often? I would say if you got a 8-hour day at the office, whether you're working from home or in the office, you should be, on a 10-minute basis, you should be adjusting and making sure that you're not in that same position. Ideally, if you got a standing desk or you can change position every half an hour to an hour, get up. And even if you can't, even if you're just stuck at a desk all day, stand up, move around, expose those joints to end range. So there's a simple little kind of exercise that you can apply to all your joints, and it's short CARs, controlled articulating rotations. And that's all about just taking those joints to end range. So whether that's your shoulder, your scapula, you can basically just say stand up on a...
Just simply moving it.
Simply moving it. Just getting those muscles into a lengthened state so that you can gain awareness, and not just that, but expose them to mobility as frequently as you're exposing it to that stagnant movement, that just staying still. So, and that is one of the biggest problems that I feel like everyone faces today, especially in that office environment. They just stay in that same position.
See, the funny thing is, imagine you're sitting in an office, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, obviously 10 minutes, kick up and you go into get into a squat. And the rest of the office is like,
Mate,
what
I'm
the
telling you.
fuck
No,
is
no,
that guy
no,
doing?
no, I
We
used
live
to-
in a world, but we live
I
in a
know,
world,
we
right?
do,
Where
we
everybody's
do.
like,
Mate.
what the fuck's that cunt
Yeah,
doing?
yeah.
He's the one that's actually helped me still.
100%.
The amount of questions I used to get. So I used to take a resistance band to work,
Yeah.
and I was like, fuck it. 'Cause
That's what I'm
See,
saying.
when I got to, I don't know if I would have done this if I was on the phones, but see, because I was the manager of the team, I'm like,
Yeah.
do what the fuck I want.
Aye.
So I would do like up and over resistance
Oh.
bands, and I do like, I learned the concept of trigger sessions.
Yep.
Which was a 10-minute session of repetitive movements, 20 reps in, lifting my arms up, above head, all that sort of
Yep.
stuff. So very much like you said. And honestly, I associate a lot of my muscle growth because of that, because I think there was a fresher blood flow and stimulus. In
Yeah,
and
and you're
around stuff.
connecting to those muscles
Yeah.
so frequently. And see, the thing is as well, I won't say too much, this is in the pipeline, but I'm obviously looking to deliver a package to corporate companies and workers in the workplace to bring in more awareness and more appreciation around that, like resistance bands, just mobility, being aware of it. Because the biggest thing is awareness. Like, most people are not aware
Don't
of
have
how
a clue.
important it is. They don't have a fucking clue. So when they, as you say, the average guy that's sitting doing a fucking deep squat position in the office is a freak. But everyone on an hourly basis should be trying to expose your joints to these end ranges. And with that, it's just something that, obviously, when you think about barefoot walking, you've got the Vivo barefoots. Come on, I need to get a pair. I'm a fucking hypocrite. Actually, I was gonna wear my Yeezy slides in here just so I could get my toes out in that. But I didn't think it was
stink.
attire appropriate. Yeah, and my feet fucking stink. Yeah. So,
No,
but
you're right. We need to normalise that. We talk about one of the most important phases that everyone skips, whether it's physio, it sounds like
Yep.
it's the same, or it's looking after your health. It's awareness and knowing where you come from. Because if you don't know that, you don't know what's going to work for you. And I think a lot of people just jump straight into the diet, jump straight into the program, jump straight into the fucking deep tissue fucking work to relieve their pain.
Yeah.
Right. So we got we got trapped nerves. So muscle strain then.
Yeah.
Muscle strain. How does that come about? How does that happen?
Muscle strain usually comes from compensation, innit? Because, like, when you think of your body, it's a team of muscles. Like, people try to, like, obviously that's the only real problem with bodybuilding movements. It's all A to B. There's no really kind of incorporated compound movements other than squat, bench, and deadlift. But even still,
If
it's
they
A
do
to
them.
B. If they fucking
love the
do them.
machines too much.
Exactly. And that's the one thing I do actually advocate. CrossFit type work as fucking
Here we go, mate.
fucking
That's what I'm
Give me
saying.
that fuck, right? That's us done. Finished.
But like the full body kind of dynamic compound movements is what is going to allow your muscles to work as a team, and that's the biggest problem. It's all very disconnected. So when we think of muscle strains, we need to make sure that all the muscles around all the joints are doing their job sufficiently and efficiently. And if that isn't the case, compensation, muscle strain, certain bigger muscles are going to take over for the smaller muscles, and that's where usually muscle strain happens.
Yeah.
Weakness usually is obviously the predecessor to a muscle strain, because when you think of a muscle strain, it usually comes from it being overused in a sense.
So what is that? I'm geeking out here, but what actually happens with the strain? Is it a tear? Is it a micro tear?
It's many little tears. Yeah.
So not to the extent of the damage that we do to muscles, for example.
No.
Is it
But
larger
it's
than
enough
that?
to create enough damage to then start to send for your brain to start to receive pain signals from that area.
Right.
And if that is the case, then there's a sufficient level of damage that you need to address, or that little strain then becomes over time a chronic, deeper injury, that for which you go to max out on bench, and that's where the fucking pec tear comes in.
Right.
Because you've allowed that little tiny acute fucking injury to turn into such a deeper rooted thing. Because the strain obviously as well, as I said about not being able to outstretch an injury, I feel like a muscle strain as well, unless you can, I would say optimally you would want to always see a physio after a strain, because you will never know it. It could be years down the line. Honest to God, it's kind of weird like that. Like that strain can go away. There's no pain anymore because it's healed. But the formation, the formation that those fibers have healed in is incorrect. Do you know what I mean? It's like tying a little knot in an elastic band. And until you untie it, obviously we can't untie knots, so I'd have to cut you open and fucking untie the knot. But like, until you break up that and allow the fibers to heal in that aligned state, there is a level of injury risk that is heightened from that 100%.
So somebody gets a strain, what's the, obviously going to a physio, what is some of the things that you can do to recover from that then? Yeah, I would say, because obviously people probably strain themselves on a weekly without even really knowing it. And obviously because the pain's away, the problem's away. That's exactly it. And that's the thing, it takes for a very traumatic experience of your health, whether that's losing someone or just going through a bad injury, to start to understand and appreciate the importance of maintenance and recovery. But the things you can do for a muscle strain, I would say, is light stretching, pain-free, I'd say, obviously. But there's a level of discomfort I feel like people need to experience when they're trying when they're trying to experience that increased level of mobility. Like, your hamstrings are tight as fuck, you can't touch your toes. There needs to be a level of discomfort to try and bridge that gap between being stiff as fuck and getting more mobile. You need to endure a little bit of discomfort, but there is a definite difference between discomfort and pain. So you need to differentiate between the two. And a lot of people don't realise the disc, like, some
they'll
clients
be doing an exercise, like, oh, that's sore. No, that's just you.
It's uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable. You're just trying hard, mate.
Yeah, and I get that with every client I treat. And I'm like, oh, so what would you say on, how does that feel? Oh, it's really sore. I'm like, would you say more painful or discomfort? And they're like, nah, uncomfortable, discomfort. Do you know what I mean? Because people know what pain is.
They know.
It's, exactly.
It's
but it's hard to differentiate the two. Yeah, they're
when it comes to it.
Yeah, 100%. But with a muscle strain, what I would advise doing is, one, obviously trying to think about preventing that from happening.
That was going to be my next question. So getting into the prevention side of things.
Yeah.
So say it is, well, it depends on where the strain's happened, I would imagine.
For sure.
Is it all to do with the warm-up and what you're doing going into that?
Yeah, and it could be obviously from inherent weakness as well, that you've maybe overdeveloped some muscles and underdeveloped others. Yeah. For example, people always get these little strains in their mid-trap or like around their shoulder blade area, because when they're benching, their chest and shoulders and triceps are strong enough. The little stabilizers have not been primed or built to withstand that pressure or that load. So preventative measures is all about creating a level of stability at your joints through targeting the little muscles, the ones that people don't even know exist. It's crazy. Like, there's a muscle that I call the mouse muscle. I'm copywriting that. I fucking called that. I've not heard anyone say it. But basically, there's a muscle called infraspinatus. It sits on your shoulder blade. It internally, externally rotates the shoulder. And if you're on a mouse all day, that's a muscle that's going to get fucked. But when you go into like a bench press environment or any sort of pushing, that's one of the biggest stabilizer muscles in that movement, for which if it's tight, it's been overused. There's no level of sufficient contraction or stability coming from that, which then causes compensation into pecs, shoulders, triceps, all that shit. So preventative measures is all about building the secondary stabilizer muscles that people don't even know exist. And to be fair, unless you're like, you've been through a background of like medicine or you've done any sort of anatomy research, you're not really going to know. That's why I have a job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's why people come to me. It's not just about preventing injury, but it's about gaining like a knowledge base and understanding around the subject, isn't it?
Yeah. It's good that you're taking ownership of that as well, to educate
100%.
as opposed to just, right, boom, done.
Exactly.
That's why I'm doing what
Because
I'm
it's
doing.
almost like, I feel like the difference between manipulation and help is your intention. So like my intentions are so pure to the point where like, I definitely get it from my mum. She's a very sympathetic, empathetic person, too empathetic, to the point where she starts to take shit away from herself in a way.
Yeah.
So I've learned from her, I know where to draw the line, but I still have a lot of empathy and sympathy towards like the people that are ill-knowledged, and I feel in some way responsible to educate them and give them a better all-rounded approach to recovery, because that's the loyalty that I then gain to have the maintenance in my clients. It's like a lot of therapists don't try to connect with their clients.
Yeah.
But I feel like bridging the gap between business and personal, especially in my industry, and especially in your guys', is
Absolutely.
so effective. And it gives them such a sense of like well-being and comfort and support that they wouldn't maybe usually have, or even like that. I feel like that bridges the gap between them seeing it as just a service and becoming a part of their lifestyle. Do you know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
No, I like that. So you got tears, you got trapped nerves, anything else that causes pain or why someone come to you apart from like slip discs and all this sort of stuff?
Yeah. Apart from that, there's a lot of imbalance, and what a lot of people, they know but they don't understand or identify is that everyone has a dominant side. Like you're right-handed, I presume. You're right-handed. So like when you think about going into a gym, we're going into a very symmetrical environment, but we're not symmetrical. We've got one arm that we've used our whole fucking life, brushing our teeth, cooking, whatever else you want to get up to in your spare time. Do you know what I mean? So,
Absolutely.
But like when we think about that, imbalance is a big reason for injury, especially like it's not, there's no surprise people come in with one injured shoulder. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like you go into a gym and more than likely you're going to have a side that's a little bit stronger, a little bit more connected, slightly better stability, and the biomechanics within that causes the imbalance to grow. Like you see a lot of people, they've got one pec slightly bigger, maybe one shoulder slightly more rounded. Like
I will do.
Big part of like the clients that I see is based around imbalance as well.
Yeah.
And that's something I can obviously really help with and identify the imbalance, what muscles aren't working correctly on one side, and create that more all-rounded approach. Like there's a post on my Instagram, @Ritchie_sports therapy, that like you see like after one session, had a guy who was a roofer, and he always carries shit on his right
I
shoulder.
seen that, the shoulder
He
blade
dropped
was
to
up,
the left, it was full body, and after one session, all the muscles, the fascia, the fatty tissue, being kind of like mobilized and kind of reset, you see his body sitting more square. And that's imbalance through exposure. And that's the other thing as well. Like, you only know what you know, and your body only knows what it's exposed to. So if you're only exposing it to imbalanced movements and kind of incorrect, kind of uneven biomechanics, that's all it's going to really know. So like really kind of taking it back to the root of the cause, maybe that's through your job or just through unawareness of like having that imbalance going into the gym initially. A few years in the gym, you build that imbalance even more. There's always a way to reverse it. It's just about understanding and identifying where the imbalances lie and kind of working it like almost like from the start and going forward with it.
That's why I love unilateral training. I put that in everybody.
Literally.
Every single client I have goes through a phase where strategically I put in these exercises because they're great exercises like walking lunges that expose stability issues and all this sort of stuff. But it's more from a place of, especially every person I get and they press above head, and this is as high as they can go. Like you said, they very rarely can bring their arms above their head. So getting them to hold 2 dumbbells, or even 1 dumbbell to start with, and press over and just keep their head above their head, keep their hand above their head. Like it's crazy that simple movement and mechanics. But I know the reward they're going to get if they learn that skill the later they get into the health and fitness journey.
100%. And see, the thing is as well with overhead mobility, just to touch on, a lot of people obviously feel like it's just that shoulder joint, but that end range mobility for overhead actually sometimes also comes from that thoracic extension. So
right down the middle of the back.
Yeah, that actual like kind of opening up of the chest, the spine actually, thoracic spine, being able to extend. That's where obviously a lot of people in this office job, they lack that because it's just slouching. And even you might not even see that, but it's about the exposure and the shortening of those muscles. And what sits there, your erectors, that mid-lower trap that I'm talking about.
Yep.
So there's specific work that I'm going to be bringing out. I'm actually bringing an app out soon just for my clients because there's a level of convenience I feel like an app brings and accountability.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely.
So we were speaking about the app, so let's kind of come away from the actual therapy side of things, business side of things then. So did you go ahead with launching your own app, or are you going to utilise it?
Still building it. I feel like I'm going to be very wary of what I want to include in the app because I want to provide as much value as possible. So I'm going to take my time to build the exercise banks, structure the routines, because that's the other thing as well. I'm trying to think from kind of an approach of like being able to give someone an app that encompasses everything they need around recovery, whether that's the booking link to book in or all the mobility routines that people need and can choose from. Because like it's all well and good saying a full body mobility routine, but some people might just want
stack away a shoulder routine on
exactly.
top of it.
So people might just want, my hips are tight today, I'll stretch out my hips. Because that's another thing, people try to cram everything into the one day.
Yeah,
that's where you burn yourself out, and you're like, right, well, fucking, I can't be arsed doing it the next day because it's like a 30-minute routine.
Yeah.
Even if you're doing like, this is another thing as well, even if you're just doing like mobility 3 to 5 times a week on each muscle group, you don't need to do full body every single day. Like, you don't. Obviously, we live every single day. We're probably sitting in that office chair or doing the repetitive movements every day. But even exposing your body to that 3 to 5 day a week frequency of mobility will gain 10 times more awareness than what you would if you're trying to do it all in one day. Fuck it for the rest of the week. Monday again, fuck it. So, like, I'm going to obviously look within the app to create little routines that can basically kind of segment areas in your body that you want to just focus on that day. Do you know what I mean? And within that, I feel like accountability for me, like growing up, like business, like from the start of this year and growing the business to what I have now, a big part of my awareness is around accountability has been crazy, because if I don't have something set in place, whether it's a time constraint or a purpose for getting things done, the accountability, if it's not there, I don't get it done.
Yeah.
So for the app as well, it's not just mobility. I'm going to look to hold people accountable, say push reminders to drink water. I mean, things like that.
Have you came across the prehab guys?
Yeah.
Black King is like black and red.
100, yeah.
They've got their own app and exercise library, but their stuff looks really good. So, but you're right. We need more of that in this space. So take us back. So when you became a physio, did you go straight into like another clinic? How did you get work? How did that?
Starting off, obviously, I was kind of in that kind of in-between stage of like, right, I need to set up a business. I know fuck all about business. Like, I was like, what do I do here? So Business Gateway was a big thing, getting into there, going through the little courses and shit like that. Obviously, getting a bit of a grasp on how to actually run a business. But obviously, I opted out for trading my time for experience, not money. So I went into, so like at the start, I was like, fuck it, like, I'm very fresh. If I need to do shit for free, I'm going to.
Fine.
Because I see the long-term vision. I see the goal of becoming an all-rounded therapist and having my business. So I got into football teams like Clydebank Juniors, a few different junior football teams, working with like 20 fucking guys like every night. Like, it's crazy.
So much experience right there.
Oh, it's mental. And the different kind of levels of initiative I had to use to kind of figure out little problems. Say they came off at half-time, there's little problems I had to try and fucking deal with. So there's a lot of high-pressure scenarios that working with a football team really gained me, like, with my perspective.
So you done that totally for free?
Well, it was like fucking like 40 quid a week or something. It was like
remember Lizzie? So she,
not a lot.
She was working for football teams and that, and I remember finding out it's like, they're not paying you much. It's like they're almost like, oh, there's a new fresh face. Cool. Come into the team, because
that's it, man.
Because no matter what you do, you're providing value. It doesn't matter like your level of competency that well, to an extent.
Literally, because like that £40 was just paying my train fare, and not even that. I was like getting on the train with the physio bag, like pure like fucking like bags and shit. Yeah, and actually at some points I got the train with my massage bed and shit. Obviously they ended up getting one, so that was fine. But like, it was just definitely just persevering through that.
Hustle.
It's the hustle. It's literally that, bro.
So then what happened? Like, when did you branch away from that?
I branched away from that as soon as I realised my time was more valuable than the money I was getting.
You learned the experience.
100%. I got to the point where I was like, I'm taking homers now. I'm starting to fix people. It's like, what can I now do to actually just branch into opening my own business? So it was like kind of 2019, I was doing all this. End of 2019, setting all the kind of business infrastructure up, getting all that ready. Start of 2020, I was like, right, let's launch the business. I got a little space in a little salon, little humble salon, little space, fucking working around people, like doing their nails and shit. So it was like, it was very much...
Did you get your nails done?
Yeah, sometimes. Just my toes in it. I can't be getting judged with the fingers. But honestly, like with that, it did actually really humble me a lot, because I was just like, all I need is a space to have a bed and treat people. Obviously started that, 2020, COVID. The big scam came around, and that fucked it also. I was just actually seeing people that knew it was a scam in my granny's fucking house. I was like, my grand's spare room, just taking people within that, and just making sure that I'm still keeping on top of the experience as this shit show was going on. It came to the kind of end of 2020, and I saw a vacancy open up in a private gym. And obviously, like, the security within that, getting a little bit of money, and not just that, you go into a fully functioning gym, there's clientele to just hit right into.
It should be
it's crazy.
Easy, man,
it's a hack. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're not having to build a business. You're going in there with already maybe open people like ready to take like treatment from you. Do you know what I mean?
Who's got pain? most people put their hand up.
Exactly.
And you're like, cool, I can fix it.
For sure. So like doing that, obviously, and then I worked there for maybe like a couple years. And as I said, it's funny how every transition in my life has came from coming to a level of development that I knew and I was like kind of deserving of more. So like when I was working for that gym, there was a level of experience that I really gained. I'm so grateful for that, being in that gym, the journey in Helensburgh. Really grateful for that, the people around me, the mentors, the kind of business mind that helped me grow. But I just got to the point where I was like, I'm at my capacity and what I can take from this now. I need to level up, open my own business, because it was always the plan. Obviously, I had to shut the business down. It was JRST, kind of personal brand. I understood that personalising a brand, I feel like limits the capacity to grow.
Yeah.
So I was like, right, what kind of values do I have, like as a sports therapist? And it is like giving people more of what they want to do in life, more life. So like that kind of like approach of just like creating the business name and then launching it at the start of 2023. It was just the start of this year.
Yeah, I remember seeing the.
And it's funny
stuff you
because
were doing.
like obviously usually a business like kind of starts from fuck all and builds. But because I was already working as a
History, yeah,
therapist for
yeah.
like 3-4 years before that, I did start pretty busy. So I started straight away with relatively good clientele and just kind of built from that. But the biggest kind of learning curve that I've experienced in business as a therapist is how many people don't prioritize their health. And
Oh,
if
mate, it's insane.
you strip away health, what the fuck have you got?
Doesn't
Nothing.
matter. Yeah, it doesn't
Actually
matter.
nothing.
Like
It's
everything,
crazy.
it's the crux that will. Doesn't matter how rich you get or how successful you are. Like without your health, you have limitations.
And you see
It's
some
so
of these
scary.
millionaires, bro, right? Like you see some of these millionaires, soft fucking bellies. Like, they don't shout Kyle Ritchie, soft fucking bellies, but they don't actually like prioritize the health side of things. They just try to make money, and they'll get to a crossroads where they understand enjoying that money only gets so much out of life. You want to feel good, like.
So do you follow Brian Johnson? You seen him? The guy who's trying to reverse his age?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Liver King.
Yeah. What?
no Liver
Right.
King.
You said Brian Johnson, is that a
Aye.
Liver King? No.
I think that's
Is
his
it
name as well.
Oh,
But
is it?
Actually, it's
No,
his
no.
fucking name.
That's
So-
that's the two of their names.
So-
No, he's trying to reverse his age, and I think he sold his company for like 800 million,
Okay,
and he was like, he's saying now is like your health is more important than money.
for sure.
You know what I mean? He was like, I'm so happier now just living in my house, doing this, than I ever was making money.
But the funny thing about that is, right, is you see that from the perspective of someone that's already made all the money. So like he's able
Which
to.
is
Do you know what I mean? He's able to say that.
yeah.
Like I feel like there's a balanced approach you need to take to life if you want longevity. But people just get so taken over with the money and business, and they just neglect their health like we all do.
Mate, it's not even money in business half time anymore.
I think it's phase.
It's
I think you
just-
go
It's
through
just
phases.
fucking other shite.
It's just
Head-
comfortability.
Hedonism. Like see that pleasure-filled fucking life that most people live. Like I always have this concept going around in my head. Every decision I make, discipline or regret. 2 choices make fucking 1. Discipline is obviously the logical choice to make, but we're so taken back by that survival instinct in our brain, hardwired to avoid discomfort,
Yeah.
seek comfort,
Yeah.
and that is the decisions that allow us to suffer the pain of regret over the pain of discipline. But then when that comes into a health aspect, as I said, we just take it for granted until we lose a fucking leg or some shit.
Aye,
Do you know what I mean?
till it is too late.
Yeah.
So,
sorry.
see for the listeners, what age are you?
I'm 22, 23 this year.
So obviously everybody listening, like, you started that in 2020.
Yeah, my first little personal business. Yeah,
So 19, do you know what I mean? Starting, that's young.
yeah,
That's young to be starting, and obviously
Sure.
learning all this. It's like it's young to be doing what you're doing.
100%.
And obviously you've came on here and you're
You don't come across
Talking
as if you're.
Yeah,
you
bro,
come across like you've got the experience, you've got the wisdom in that.
for sure.
When you're talking about focusing on your health, have you had periods of time where? Because I know for myself, business it's almost like there is balance,
Yeah,
but sometimes the scales are tipped in favour of business than it is my workouts,
yeah.
and then the other way. What's your experience been with that so far? You been pretty good, or
Yeah, so like I genuinely, it's weird because like I know I'm in it for the long run. Like we all know that we're gonna be millionaires at some point. There's gonna be the level that we reach. It's just a matter of when. So like having that in my head, I understand that a day where I could do more work and sacrifice recovery maybe isn't necessary in the bigger picture. So I do graft and I'm staying up till like fucking 1-2 a.m. at night sometimes. I fuck up my sleep sometimes. But I definitely prioritize my health and recovery over business. And I know I do that purely based on the awareness I've gained from my job
yeah.
and also the importance of longevity. Like,
Yeah,
as
I
I
like
said, health is wealth in the sense that you can make all the money you want, but you're not looking after your health. There's going to be a limiting factor to how much you can actually live after a certain point in your life. So to be fair, working out that balance, I've always sacrificed business work for recovery until the last few months. Like, I've taken on so much responsibility, right, to the point where I need to kind of sacrifice hours. Some things I'm not stretching every day, but I know obviously like there's a level of injury risk to that, so I just maybe taper down what I'm doing, say, in the gym. Mm-hmm. So I just account for what I'm doing in terms
you're
of...
aware. You're aware.
I'm so aware. Like, I'm hyper fucking aware. And that's where obviously I'm 22, quite young to be speaking like this, but the access to information that we have these days,
it's insane.
If you're not utilising that, it's completely your loss. Like, I just
I
see potential in all of us as humans, and see if we don't strive to kind of like achieve that full potential, it's on you, man. Like, that's what it is. So like, I definitely feel like the balance between work and rest has really been making just sure there's a contrast there. So like, if I'm deep in work, I'm going to be deep in rest at a certain point in that day. Obviously, I'm on the cigars. I'm talking the cigars and shit. And obviously, honestly, I don't know what it is about cigars, but they're so therapeutic. And you don't inhale it. Yeah, honestly, bro. Do I smoke one in there?
I'm alright.
He's like joking.
I've got a few in my fucking pocket.
No, but I know what you mean. So like, I used to vape sometimes, and I don't really drink, and I don't vape anymore because it's a lot of nicotine in the vapes. But at the same time, I think everybody needs that wee something. Because I was sitting in my house yesterday, right, my day off, and I was the same as you. For a while, I wasn't prioritising rest, but then I wasn't working as well because I wasn't prioritising rest.
Yes.
So I planned out my days, so I'm working hard then, but I'm also resting then.
100%.
Yesterday, I'm like, I could go a smoke.
Yeah, man.
Do you know what I mean? I'm like, that would have been nice, but I was like, I'm not smoking a vape.
Weed or smoke?
No, I don't smoke weed. I don't like weed.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
just a vape. But I was like, I'm not going to smoke a vape because I remember the last time I done it, I just chucked it away.
Yep.
But it would have been nice to just sit and relax for me.
And puff, yeah.
Aye, because I don't drink. I don't really go out, and I'm fine with that.
Yep.
But I think there's a wee balance. Like, you game, some people would do that. Do you know what I mean?
But I think that's the thing. Like, we as humans, we're shit at sitting, doing nothing.
Aye.
And it's when you're doing nothing, the cravings come out of whatever it may be.
Definitely.
Like, it's that I need to be doing something, and you don't get that
so,
time.
It's so hard to sit and do nothing.
It's crazy.
So fucking difficult.
Especially when you get ADHD.
Oh, mate, it's so fucking hard.
See, one thing as well that I've really started to pick up and take into my morning and nightly routine is meditation, right?
Right.
People don't see it in the deeper kind of way that like some people do. And the people that do consistently meditate, I understand they've appreciated like the power of it. But people just see it as like hippie shit. You're sitting just fucking deep breathing or whatever. But I went to the Vortex Centre a few weeks ago.
I want to hear your experience.
I went to the Vortex Centre a few weeks ago with Kyle. We done a one-to-one session. We sat down. Jim McFadden, the guy, is absolute fucking wizard when it comes to getting your brain and your mind into that higher state of just understanding and appreciating how precious life is. And that's another thing as well. The things that people take for granted, like their health, it comes from a lack of appreciation. Like, see if you're grateful to have your health. Like, there was a podcast I watched recently, Diary of a CEO. I didn't watch it all, but it was a girl lost her legs. Like, lost her 2 legs.
I seen that,
a fucking tampon, mate. Are you mad? Like, shit like that you're walking around your daily life and it's just stripped away from you in a matter of weeks. The people that don't take it for granted, the people that do take it for granted and don't appreciate it enough, though, they are just, like, very complacent in that sense. I feel like the more disciplined I've got with business, the more disciplined I've got with my health. Like, I fast 16 to 18 hours every day. Having a little coffee this morning for the podcast, like, I usually fast.
Is that what you do, eh?
16 to 18 hours every day, and I've got peeled as fuck from it. Like, I've got.
I was gonna say, like, is this for getting peeled, or is it more for the
Discipline.
other benefits?
To be fair, I was planning to fight in August. This August coming. Hopefully, looking to do my first fight still in December. So it was more for like cutting weight purposes. But within that, I started to see and feel the difference in how I actually
feel. Mental clarity and all that sort of stuff.
It's fucking mental, and it's crazy.
So we're gonna do. So I've done 40-hour fast. I've done a couple of them over the last.
I like how you said
we.
I didn't agree to this shit.
We're gonna do because I'm fascinated with fasting. No pun intended there. And the actual health benefits to it. I think a lot of people, the average population. No average population, but a lot of people will see fasting and do what you do and do intermittent fasting because they're trying to lose weight.
Sure.
But all they're doing is cutting down the calories that they're having. They're sleeping like shit. They're not training, and it's not a cheat code.
There's no strict eating window.
No. It's nothing. It's not for those reasons as much. When you go into your performance side of things,
For
where
sure.
it's for fighting or it's an athletic pursuit. Yeah, okay, I can kind of get behind it from that point of view.
Yeah.
So the meditation side of things, what are you doing? Singing Kumbaya to yourself, because like you said, that's where everybody's head goes. But I know it's not. But for the audience listening, like, what does that look like
So
for you in the
10
morning?
minutes, I just sit and burst into fucking tears.
Get all the emotions out.
Just start fucking crying, mate. I just cry myself to sleep. So it's all about connecting to your breathing and just really getting into such a state of like mental clarity that you're not really thinking of anything outside of what you're doing there and then. So like that presence, becoming present in the meditation, that's a really powerful thing. But what I'm physically doing, nasal breathing, all about breathing from the belly, like laterally expanding. There's actually a drill that you can do to reinforce nasal breathing and kind of like connect to doing it. It's called the sandwich drill.
I show all my clients
That's how we get them to brace, basically, when they're deadlifting.
So that you start by connecting to where the breath comes from, and you would look to then just expand all the way up into your rib cage, into your chest, up into your head. And within that, inhaling, when you meditate, you want to think about inhaling being the up regulator. So whenever you're inhaling, you want to think about filling yourself with whatever you want to. So and obviously a lot of people say, oh yeah, think of joy, think of gratitude, think of happiness. But what Jim taught us was not to think, but to feel. So think back to a place of where you felt gratitude or you felt joy, you felt happiness. Yeah. And see, when you're breathing in, you're up-regulating and you're really filling your body with the feeling of joy, of gratitude, of happiness. And then when you breathe out, you exhale, that's the down-regulator, so ridding yourself of all that stress. Right. And he talks about these little exit points, the bottom of your feet, the back of your knees. And if you can really visualize that and really get into it, because that's what I'm saying, a lot of people cringe when they do it. It's like cringy.
That's what I mean, it's almost, you look at it and even you talking about it, I know people will be thinking, oh, that's all woohoo magic bullshit.
100%.
But doing it at the Financial Freedom Summit, and I've done it a couple of times just with watching videos on my phone, guys like, I'm going to take you through a meditation. I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to try it. And I've had a really great experience with it. 100%. When if you put your ego to the side and you're just like, right, fuck it, let me just open my mind up to this, the value that you can get from it's insane.
For anyone watching as well, for the first 10 times you do it, you will be sitting there like, what the fuck am I doing?
Aye.
But see, when you start to value it in a way that allows you to feel like you're elevating, like you're raising your levels of vibrations and your day, like it's fucking mental. Like basically, like I do cold showers every single morning, have done for the last couple of years, and implementing meditation before the cold shower, I don't even feel the cold anymore. It's fucking mental. And
that's Superman.
It's honestly, you feel fucking invincible, especially after the meditation, and really reinforcing that positivity as well allows you to tackle all the daily stressors in such a more open-minded way. It almost allows you to zoom out. And obviously, we could touch on this if you guys want, but
I'm up for it.
The podcast, Bulletproof Mindset, because the power of the mind is so fascinating.
Well, let's talk about mushrooms then.
Let's do it.
Let's talk about fucking mushrooms, because a lot of people are so close-minded to mushrooms. It's a drug, psychedelic, this and that.
I was speaking to somebody the other day, and I was like, I don't do drugs anymore. We were talking to each other, but I was like, the one drug that I would definitely do again, 100%, is mushrooms. And I will do it again. It's fact. But I won't touch cocaine or anything like that again. But mushrooms it's no the same as any other drug.
So what would you say, from your perspective, mushrooms does for you, or what do you think?
I've never taken them before, but I've spoke to James about this, that it's the drug, like the psychedelic experience. Anytime I've heard someone speak about their experience with it, I think for the negative ones that's out there, it's always outweighed by so many more positive ones.
100%.
And it all, from what I'm gathering, it's all to do with the environment that you set up in. We had our good friend Jay on the podcast, and he was really overweight, or maybe even obese, I think he would class himself as. And it was that experience that allowed him to shift his mindset and what he wanted to do when it came to because he knew what a calorie deficit was, he knew about training, and he shares his experience with that and saying, I was taking magic mushrooms and I was looking at myself in the mirror and I was like, wow, I need to get my shit together, I need to get this done.
Yeah, literally. So honestly, with mushrooms as well, what I feel like a lot of people think about is, you're going to trip, you're going to see mad shit, this and that. I've taken mushrooms countless times now and see the perspective that I've gained from it and the level of appreciation. And just when I say perspective as well, a lot of people take things for face value. So when you receive, say you're fucking on the road and there's road rage, someone cuts in front of you, obviously your initial reaction is emotional. But see, taking mushrooms, it allows you to like zoom out and see things from a much wider perspective, in the sense that mushrooms give you so much more deeper exploration into your emotions and how you understand and maybe interpret certain things, because a lot of people have an emotional bias based on their childhood, their upbringing. But what mushrooms allows you to do is come from a neutral bias. Like, you're not seeing it from your past experience, you're seeing it from what you think it actually is. Do you know what I mean? So it's weird how it's fucking, people experience ego death and all that kind of stuff. It's purely based on being able to see things for what they are and not what you've maybe been exposed to in your childhood and then created an emotional bias around that thing. So like, mushrooms allow you to zoom out, explore your emotions on such a deeper level. And when that comes into business and stuff, I feel like having that zoomed out perspective of business allows you to think so much more creatively.
So when's the last time you had taken mushrooms? What was your experience?
So I actually microdose.
I've heard
of
about
conscious caps on Instagram. Conscious caps on Instagram, functional mushrooms, all that kind of stuff I get from them. Within that, obviously, the last time I actually took mushrooms, like, went on, like, took, like, I think it was, like, maybe 2 grams or whatever. That was a few months ago, to be fair. It wasn't too long ago. But I only really feel like I utilize mushrooms to help, whether that's transition or take on a new level of responsibility. Because a lot of people as well, they get overwhelmed with their life. It's hard to kind of take a step back from everything you're doing. So mushrooms allow you to just escape that kind of, that sense of responsibility and see things from more of like a subjective point of view. And so when I did that, obviously I'm a very intellectual, deep person, I believe. So the conversations that I have are not anything but intellectual, whether that's constructive talk about different life concepts and business principles, like with my brother Kyle. Like, I never really take mushrooms with anyone other than my brothers and my boys, because there's a level of connection I feel like you need to delve into that deeper side of mushrooms. Like, see if you take it at a festival.
Are you talking to each other?
Yeah, conversating, just talking, like whether we go a walk or whatever. But I'll tell you one thing, I took mushrooms when I went to Terminal V, like Techno Festival.
Oh, no.
Exactly, bro.
No in public, mate.
That's what I'm saying, bro. So until shit went wrong, it was amazing. But until you experience like someone swedgered out their trumpet, bro, going nuts in front of you, it's weird how energies are perceived.
You feel it much more.
It's fucked, man. Like, it's hard to actually put mushrooms into words, really. And it's not like you're out of control, but you feel, like, it's hard to interpret it through words. It's like you feel certain things. Like, with the energy side of things, like, you start to feel how pure certain people are. Like, I'll look, say, at my girlfriend, for example, and you see, like, how pure her energy is. And then there's some people that I knew that was around me at that festival, and you kind of feel the negativity, man. It's fucking crazy. But see, being able to do that on your own life and self-reflect and see maybe where you're negative or where there's doubt in your life from a neutral perspective, that's where mushrooms are so powerful. It's fucking nice.
Do you feel, though, there is an addictive
part of mushrooms?
Part of it, yeah. Because you're seeking the goodness in it, in a way.
Yeah.
Because you say that, like, I don't know what you said there, like along the lines of when people can get overwhelmed very easily.
Yeah.
And that, on one hand, builds resilience and character if you can cope with it.
For sure.
But on the other hand, if you're using the mushrooms as a chance to, not to escape, but to deal with it better,
yep.
do you feel like they could be?
Well, I've got a very addictive personality. Like,
I'm
so fucking obsessive over things that I put my mind on, right? And mushrooms has never been something that I've felt like I really want to do, because it's an experience. Like, see for how deep it feels. You don't want to be in that state all the time.
That's what I was just about to say. When you take them, you don't want to take them again for a while.
Yeah.
Because you leave it feeling really good. Like, you leave after a mushroom trip feeling...
And it's intense.
I feel, yeah, it's so intense. And you leave, you're like, I feel really good.
Yeah.
You wake up the next day feeling really good, and it projects onto the next few days. When you take other drugs, it's not like that. But you don't want to go into that again, because it is, like, super...
intense. And you get what you need from it. Like, it's not something like, say, smoking weed.
You spoke about that before. Like, you go in with the question, and you go in with the intention and answers that you might be seeking, and you come away with that.
100.
So, like, in the past, I've done it without that, like, 100%. But, like, see,
no,
I'm just playing, I'm getting at my nut. The last time I done them took 2.5 grams. And
Trippets.
But the thing is, my pal had a chocolate bar with 5 in it. I didn't know, I thought it was just a normal chocolate bar.
You scanned it?
I scanned half it, and he scanned half it.
Fuck.
And I was like, mate, I am tripping. And he's like, I know, man. He's like, I was like, how much was that chocolate bar? He's like, 50 quid. I'm like, What do you mean 50 quid?
He's
like, that's 5 grand in it. I'm like, oh no, man, I was tripping at my dick.
But if you went into that with the intention to gain perspective, then
I've changed so much since the last time I done that, and I know for a fact that if you went into it now, it's like you day go into it with that intention.
100%, bro. And that's the difference. Like, intention is all about like what you get from mushrooms, and if you go into it knowing you want to gain perspective or reinforce different concepts that will help push you forward, because I feel like creating a business mind as well comes from being emotionally aware. Like, a lot of people think, oh yeah, just set up the kind of logistics behind a business and run it, but you need to be so emotionally aware, because the amount of stress that you deal with running a business, you need to be aware of why you're feeling that stress, how to identify it, how to deal with it. Mushrooms help with that, man.
You also
100%.
need the stress. A lot of people's like, oh, I don't get stress. It's like, well, stress isn't a bad thing. Like, we all need to expose ourselves to stress, because if we don't expose ourselves to these stresses, like lifting weights or like mental challenges, and we will never be resilient as human beings.
There's no
We'll
growth
be too
in
soft. We would generally be too soft for
that.
the shit that goes wrong in society. So you said you're fighting.
Yeah.
What's your health and fitness journey like now? Like, what you've loved, you're a big fan of the UFC and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Have you fought before?
Never.
So take us through that.
So, like, obviously I was always football based, but I think that comes down to the facilities that you have around you as a kid.
In
You know
Scotland.
what I mean? Like, football or fucking rugby, mate. Or if you want to go to dancing.
Aye.
But that's what girls do. So, like, do you know what I mean? So, like, that was obviously, as soon as I was like 16, I think, and then I went to a little Thai gym in Clydebank, Yoker, for like a couple months, and then my stepdad stopped going, so I just stopped going. And then it came around like maybe 2 years ago-ish that I was like, right, fuck it, man, I want to fight. I want to do a fight. So I started doing one-to-ones with the coach in my local gym. Guy's an absolute legend, so much wisdom. So how fast I came on was really down to him. Obviously, I feel like I'm a fast learner, but having an amazing coach there really fucking helped build me so quickly. And then since the start of this year, kind of like maybe April time, I've been consistently sparring like 3 times a week and shit like that. But actually, I went on holiday to Tenerife just there, and I made a little connection with a club over there.
Yeah, I saw that.
I'm looking to go over on a monthly basis and commit to building a clientele over there, because I believe networking is the difference between
huge.
fucking making it and not. So fighting actually for the next month is taking a complete backseat, and it's like a weird contrast, because I was like, fuck it, I'm fighting. I was so deep in it, and then I'm like, fighting's always going to be there.
Is that the priority?
Well,
Exactly.
you lean into what your priority is, and business is where it is.
100%.
Talk through that then. So what does that look like from a business perspective? Are they like, how does the cut work? How do you benefit monetary wise, or is it all about the networking side of things? Like, what's working?
So that's what I'm saying is, like, from my perspective, as long as I break even on a monthly and I'm building these connections that could lead to networking or business opportunities in the future, I'm fine. But for the demand that's there, like Tenerife is like it's pretty like, what's on the island is on the island. There's not a lot like that comes to and from that. So looking around, there's only like a few kind of like maybe Spanish therapists.
You like that? Fucking rookies, man.
Do you know what I mean?
Got them.
and you also, you go around and there's hundreds of rubbing tugs, mate. So if you're wanting a little happy ending massage, that's fine. You can go to them.
I was like, what, rubbing tug? Or
Yeah, rubbing tug. Yeah, little tuggy. Do you know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about.
James is like, I'll come to Tenerife next time with you.
Sounds alright.
So like, what I'm trying to do is actually bring like a
Proper service.
A proper service that's going to fix people. And see the amount of people that live there that are British, Scottish, English speaking, that want a fucking person that can come over, give them a plan and fix them. As I said, the 2-step approach I have. Exactly, there's a big market for it. Obviously, just so happens BDL Tenerife, they're the biggest club on the island. Obviously, that's actually Big Narsty. Do you know Big Narsty, the rapper?
Yeah.
It's his club, so there's a lot of crazy connections.
So what's in the club? Like, is it just dancing?
Yeah,
that's
not dancing.
raves and all that?
No, so it's like a social club.
Right, okay.
Obviously, over there, weed's decriminalised,
Yeah,
isn't it? So it's like a kind of cannabis club, but within that, there is like, you know, Charlie Sloth, AU Vodka. They got a little AU base out the back. That's separate, obviously. But it's just like a kind of social club with that. But within that, obviously, anyone that knows about weed that doesn't have that pure predisposed stigma around it, there's a lot of relaxation and therapeutic benefits if you moderate and use it correctly. So massage fits into that perfectly because it's relaxation, tension relief, de-stress, all that shit. So I just thought to actively network and kind of bridge the gap and put it across to them. And obviously I went over there on a lad's holiday and came back with an established connection that I'm going to be reoccurring monthly to. And the reason fighting took a back seat is because as you said, prioritising your time, especially when you've got a business running, my time, I would say, is pretty valuable, and it's getting more. The more responsibility I take on, I feel like the more valuable your time gets.
Absolutely.
So that is a big responsibility, try to bridge that gap between working here, working in Tenerife. Man's international now, you know what I mean? So like, I'm just trying to like make sure that
conquer the world, bro.
Exactly, bro. Like, so I'm just trying to make sure that the time spent is more on the business at the moment.
So what's the long term plan? Have you got a vision?
Yeah, 100%.
Talk us through it.
Long term plan, obviously. The life I'm living right now is amazing. So all I'm looking to do is just build demand in the clinic, the spaces that I've got. I've got 2 spaces at the moment. Obviously, ultimately, I'll look to bring therapists in, build an actual brand, like clinics around Scotland. There's a few different plans with like corporate companies and packages I'm looking to deliver. Within that, if that all goes well, the funding's there, then I would look to actually build clinics that just deal with certain business, like kind of pathways within the industry. Because that's another thing as well, like the health industry is a growing industry, but it's still so underrated. Like,
so new as well.
It's so new.
I think the fitness industry is only something like 40 years old or something like that. It's mental.
You think about the stigma around getting a PT and how that's changed in the last like 5 years versus going for a massage. That was like a luxurious thing that now people are taking into, they're trying to do maintenance because they understand the value. So I feel like the kind of long-term plan, obviously my twin brother being a PT, covering both aspects of health and recovery. Obviously, our own gym is going to be amazing. That's what's going to happen in that sense. But
owning a gym, did you say?
Owning a gym, yeah. Ultimately, obviously, I just want to get to a financial position where I can just reciprocate the gratitude and pass it on to other people through helping them on their journey to recovery and shit like that. Because it is weird that I didn't need to have a level of satisfaction and passion towards helping people. But I genuinely, like, see when I know the clients came in and they feel better after one session or a plan with me.
It's so hard to communicate that, isn't it?
Crazy,
so
man.
we obviously get that through the work that we do.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to communicate that to even your friends or people that they don't quite have a passion for what they're doing necessarily just yet. And it's hard to get across to them. It's like, no, like, it's not necessarily work. As cringy as it sounds, like, I truly enjoy
I know they'll be like, so you podcast for free and you're training people for free and you're making content for free and you're like, aye, and they're like, oh, I couldn't do that. I'm like,
what the
but
fuck?
you don't. I'm like, you got your
mindset.
job to work with for somebody else every fucking day.
Yep.
It's not the same.
It's too narrow mindset.
The thing is as well, right? So when I was working for that private gym, as much as I liked the treatments I was given, I felt a level of resistance towards actually going in and doing it. I felt like I was trying to plough through this fucking work that I didn't want to do. But now that I've got my own shit and I'm really seeing it, I feel like I'm in such a flow state. Like, there's no resistance. Everything I'm doing, I know I'm doing it for myself and my future. So, like, I'm just flowing through what I'm doing right now and there's no resistance towards it. And that's what, like, makes it not feel like a job. And then, obviously, when you think about the money, yeah, it's good. But it's weird that there's a direct correlation, or I've found that there's a direct correlation between the amount of value you provide and the money you make. So now my focus is on my purpose, value,
impact.
The byproduct is the money. So, like, and it's fucking mental. And I obviously have a few clients that are millionaires and I gain a lot of perspective and wisdom. And that's also a crazy networking opportunity in the industry that I work in, because everyone needs a rub, man. Everyone is tight as fuck. So getting access to some of these people is amazing as well. And it's definitely something I'll persist with. Even when I do have millions of pounds, I'll still be taking certain clientele that I know benefit from what I provide, my service, and obviously I obviously benefit from the connections.
That's when you know, like, you could win the lottery tomorrow, for example, and you're asked, like, what would you do? And it's like, well, what I'm doing.
Yep.
And once you get that perspective, once you're doing that, then it has to shift away from money, it has to shift to value, it has to shift to impact and all that sort of stuff.
Aye. The
one thing I wanted to ask you in this podcast was all about needling and cupping, right? It's quite a hype thing just now.
Yeah.
Now I think you follow him as well. Oh man, what's his name? He always goes after Scott University stuff.
Yeah, Dr. Adam Meekins.
Aye.
Yeah,
so I seen him giving shit for needling.
Yeah.
Did you see the
what shit
post?
did he give now?
He just, I can't even remember. I will not articulate this very well at all, but pretty much from the basis that it's pointless.
Okay.
From what it does. So what would you say to that? Or like, first of all, what is needling? 'Cause it's quite,
I like that.
I'll look at it sometimes, and you've done a few videos of disbarm that it's not painful and that sort of stuff. But basically, using these micro needles to relieve tension on the muscle or create
Space. So I would actually I'd love to see that post just to kind of get an opposing view. Yeah, because obviously I could have my mind completely opened up. Mm-hmm. But from what I've gained with needling and dry needling and the results I've seen from it, and it's all about manipulation, whether that's needling, deep tissue, it's all about trying to create a level of manipulation that can help break up the current state of the muscle and then allow for that state of the muscle, or the muscle to then heal in a more aligned, correct, restored state. And I feel like it's pretty logical to think that restoring the state of a muscle is going to help improve how well it shortens and lengthens and the function of that muscle. I feel like it's pretty logical. Obviously,
so where does needling come in? Is it because you're creating a micro?
Yeah, so like when you put the needle in and you're moving it around, it's different to acupuncture. Dry needling is genuinely all about going in and cutting up the fibres in the fascia and muscle tissue. What
My
that does
must have some amount of that.
Yeah, man. But what that does is it starts to create damage, which will then, that damage created to the muscle fibres creates almost what is like the kind of waste tissue. Because when you create enough damage, that waste tissue or that tissue that's damaged, like it breaks off from the kind of bulk of the muscle in a way.
Got you.
Cuts off oxygen, cuts off circulation. We've got a lymphatic system that helps drain all the waste product from the muscles, our lymphatic system. So when we go in with a needle and we break that muscle up, we're creating more space in that area with the needles through creating damage and breaking up and actually damaging the muscle. So that when it heals, there's going to be a little bit more space for the fibres that are there to then heal and then move more.
Right,
do you know what I mean? Okay. And it generally just because the guy that taught me the course, he's a doctor, he's got a worldwide business, he goes around the world teaching this. So there must be a level of credibility or help that comes from needling if that is a world-known, worldwide thing. But for me, I've done needling contrasted with not needling. I've only needled one side and allowed the client to go away for a few days, tell me the difference they feel.
You're applying it to your own.
I'm applying it and starting to see evidence-based results that back up how credible needling is.
That's why I wanted to ask you, because we read stuff online and that, but... So
I work with fighters, right? Aye. I've got fighters that obviously, you think about punching, right? It's all about that movement of the scapula, how well you can whip shots in. And I've got clients that I've contrasted not needling with needling, and the effects in movement and how well they move and how efficiently they feel they can snap shots out is crazy. It's a night and day difference in how they feel with the manipulation through needling. So Dr. Adam Meekins seems pretty pessimistic about everything other than exercise. Do you know what I mean? All he preaches is exercise, which I preach as well. But I feel like there's a level of manipulation some people, depending on the state of their muscle, need.
I think you're right. You're absolutely right. I think we like to go, this is the best. No. Same, look at diets, for example. You need to go vegan, you need to go paleo, you need to go carnivore, when in reality, a blend of everybody's camp is probably the best approach because we're so diverse as humans.
We like different things, know what I mean?
I love what you said there, being opposed to or hearing the opposing view, not just being so set in your ways. Because that is a true sign of a strong mindset and a growth mindset.
We're all learning, man.
We need to be.
I genuinely am so open-minded, and I feel like as well, if you're not open-minded, there's just a level of insecurity there.
Oh, absolutely.
Masking your open-mindedness, because when I'm so honest, and I feel like dishonesty breeds insecurity. You can flip that. Insecurity breeds dishonesty. I feel like when you're 100% honest, there's no insecurity that can be apparent.
Yeah.
So when I'm 100% secure, there's nothing you guys could say to me to make me curl up in a fucking ball and not reply. Do you know what I mean? But I feel like there's a level of insecurity that masks people's open-mindedness. And
for sure.
That Adam Meekins, he's a G, man. He's one of the kind
of
credible guys in the space. But see, even when you see him nitpick Scott University, he's taking things in the context of what he wants to speak about and putting it in, putting the Scott University's context in his context. Yeah. Everything's contextual.
I think the only person that can get away with that sort of style of posting is Bio Lane for the stuff that he puts out. Yeah. That's his type of style of content. But even at that, I think sometimes I'm we're confusing the audience here by what we're doing here 100%. Rather than actually helping people.
That's it.
And that's what it fundamentally comes down to. So, It's great having you on, man. I can't believe that's an hour and a half already.
I know, bro.
I think this certainly won't be the last time we link up. I think
need to get back on for mindset.
We need to
so much. To
we need to talk. We need to go through the mindset because so many people have got the wrong mindset.
We've scratched the surface with what we can talk about, honestly.
Absolutely.
And we've started doing like demonstration videos on YouTube. So if you haven't headed over to the YouTube channel, make sure you're on there. Bulletproof Mindset. Yep. We'll do a couple of videos with you on that 100%. Of like go-to exercises and stuff like that, so you get a good detailed demonstration. But we'll call you out in the intro, all your links and that, where people can find to work with you. You're based in...
I've actually got a space just next to Ibrox in Glasgow.
Right.
And I've also got a space down near where I live in Cardross, which is like kind of Dunbar and Lochlow.
Awesome. I'll leave the links below and wherever you're listening to this or watching this.
Absolutely.
So brilliant. Thanks for coming on, man.
My guy.